What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports NFL Podcast. I'm Brinson here with Brady Quinn and Leger Douzable. It's Tuesdays with Brady.
Oh yeah, he's back. He is back.
Oh yeah, I missed last week.
Oh yeah, you were gone
He
last
left
week.
us hanging last Tuesday. What happened?
Yeah, Wednesday, right? Today's
Wednesday.
Is it Wednesday?
Yeah, it was Wednesday.
Well,
I guess-
on Tuesday is what you're
I
saying.
guess Tuesdays doesn't really work on a
It was
Wednesday.
Tuesday, exactly.
Yeah,
Didn't
and
think
we-
that
we'll
one through.
coin that phrase ways back when we did it on a Tuesday, I think. So now
Yeah,
it's Wednesday.
right. We were doing it on
We were celebrating a friend who had a battle with cancer. He's doing great now, but every
Awesome.
year we obviously go and try to go on a little trip together. A bunch of guys who are friends. So that was what I missed it for. We usually would miss this for anything in the world outside of
Aw.
my family, loved ones, and obviously something kind of special like this. So
What? Where'd you go? Where'd you go on the trip?
it was a golf trip. Will.
Okay.
Yeah. Will probably already knows, so he's just kind of look at him. He's like, what?
He wants the people to know.
I honestly forgot where you went, so I wasn't trying to do anything.
It was Calusa Pines. It's an unbelievable place. It's if you get a chance to ever go play, just don't even hesitate. Just say yes.
Okay.
So,
Calusa Pines.
Calusa Pines, yes.
Calusa Pines. I was going to say you wouldn't take Pete
Calusa.
Prisco to.
I would never take Pete Prisco there. I would
Yeah,
never.
That's like a good judge of like, okay, how nice is this golf course? It's like, would you take Pete there? Because you know that Pete is going to like.
It's not just the golf course. It's like the golf course, the story behind how they built it. Dana Fry, their designer, spent as much money on dynamite to shape that course as any place in the state. So it's like for being in Naples, it's incredibly undulated for how it looks, where you don't see a lot of that in that part of the state. And the clubhouse is unique. It's unlike anything else. It's an experience. You got to go. You got to go if you get the chance.
Naples. I heard Naples is nice this time of year, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Naples is nice year round.
That's true. That's true. Well, a little hot in the. I mean, like y'all, like where y'all are, I guess a little toasty in the summer.
Oh, where y'all are doesn't get toasty too there with them.
Exactly.
It was weird, man. So we had like it was like 70 degrees and then it was 30 degrees and like back-to-back days here in North Carolina. It was wild. So it was like this. Well, I'm at the farm right now. We built a bunch of fires. Once it got nice and cool. I say I love a good
Nothing
fire.
better than a fire this time.
Nothing better than a fire. Just lounging by the fire.
Smell the crackling of the wood.
Reading books.
Oh yeah.
Getting smart by a fire. I'm just kidding.
That's what you do.
Nah, absolutely
You
not.
drink by a fire, Will.
Yeah. Red wine, little bourbon. You never know. All right, let's get moving. Let's get cracking like a fire. We'll start today, as we often do, with the Cleveland Browns. Team had a huge comeback against their divisional foe, the Baltimore Ravens, down 14 points late in that game last week, and they come back. They beat the Ravens despite missing an extra point that would have tied things up. They moved into the 6th seed, and we're really nipping on the Ravens' heels and, of course, Pittsburgh's heels when it comes to that division. And then this morning, more sad, overcast Cleveland news as Deshaun Watson out for the season. Browns issued a statement saying that he underwent a magnetic resonant imaging. Not necessary to be part of the statement, but thank you, Cleveland, for that.
The MRI. I think we've all got it.
Yeah, it's like just MRI. Like I'm not even sure I knew what an MRI stood for. I didn't really care. I just knew what it was. Imaging of his left ankle revealed a high ankle sprain, which I'm not sure that you needed that to figure it out. In addition, post-game, Deshaun notified our medical staff of a new discomfort in his right shoulder that he felt after a hit in the first half. An MRI of his right shoulder revealed a displaced fracture to the glunoid. How do I pronounce that, Dr. Quinn?
Sorry, I'm trying to follow where you're at on this. I was looking at you in the camera, not that. Where are you at?
And as has been part of the narrative with Deshaun Watson,
glenoid. Yeah.
Glenoid, that's it. All season long, the Browns had to point out that despite performing at a high level and finishing the game, I mean, my goodness gracious, like we'll get into this a little bit more, I'm sure, but could the rhetoric surrounding the reports of Deshaun Watson being injured be more heavy-handed about how he, like, it's like, I mean, an absolute warrior out there battling through an injury. It's like, we get it. You want everybody to think that he's tough. He's done for the season, though, because of a shoulder discomfort.
Think that he's tough?
What's that?
think that he's tough.
Is he? I mean, maybe he's tough. He's a football player. Of course he's tough. But it's like.
I mean,
ever since a certain discussion started brewing up about Deshaun Watson, there's been this.
So let's start there. Because
I didn't know we were going to go there, but we might as well. Huh?
Well, let's talk about the football part of it. Then we'll get to that part about Deshaun Watson.
Hold on.
Okay.
Let's just talk about it. All right.
Yeah.
Notice the difference of how this has all been reported.
Yes.
Put out there.
Yes,
very
correct.
Clear by the Browns medical staff.
Yeah.
And from all parties involved, what the injury is, when it took place. I mean, even with the high ankle sprain, depending on the severity, he could have had to miss a significant portion of the rest of the season. So regardless of what it is, this is the Browns learning from the previous mistake of having a head coach who comes out and said he was cleared and then leaving it up to the speculation of everyone else out there.
Exactly.
This is completely clear what took place, when it took place, why he needs surgery, and why he's going to miss the rest of the season. So kudos to all parties involved, because clearly that wasn't the first thing, the first time around with the shoulder injury, what happened. Now, Will, I understand what you're saying, because obviously, as many people will, they'll send you stuff like, I'm not going to say what NFL reporters, but it's like, wow, did his agent write that for him?
Yes.
Which a lot of times we've seen that with some of the prominent insiders who will tweet things that it's like, wait a second, you're supposed to take that out when you copy and paste. Okay, that's happened to me on social media before. But I'll say this: it was his best half of football as a Brown, no doubt. And he was gritty, he was tough, he fought through it. You knew there was going to be the ankle injury because you could tell visibly watching him play. The shoulder thing, it'd be hard I have to go back and look. I haven't had time yet today to go see what hit it was. Yeah. But you really didn't notice necessarily, which is a good thing, I guess, if you're a Browns fan. But in this case, now it's like you got to spin it forward. And now you have to say, where does this put the Browns? Because the Browns are currently a playoff team. I had them a playoff team before the season started. And I think they still can be. But the problem is I think they've got to either have much better football from Dorian Thompson-Robinson, looks like he's going to be the starter for this week, or PJ Walker, who has been the starter. And the biggest thing is just taking care of the football. In Dorian Thompson-Robinson's first start, it didn't really take care of the football. PJ Walker in his 2 starts didn't take care of the football. That's the biggest issue that I think you have if you're a Browns fan moving forward, is this team's good enough to still win games with defense, a running game, and a quarterback just managing it all. I mean, look, they're playing the Steelers this week. The Steelers are the case study for getting outgained offensively every single week this season and having a winning record, and currently right now being in the playoff hunt, or being in the playoffs if they started today.
Magic beans.
Don't lose hope. The Browns still have hope. They just need to be able to have quarterback play that's not going to turn the football over. And we were saying that when Deshaun Watson came back, when he was out, it didn't matter. This is still a potential playoff team.
Yeah, as we look at this, there's so much to dive into. I'm glad you brought up that statement by the Browns, Brady, because it's like a totally different tune than what we heard earlier in the year, right? Because when you put out the words medically cleared, like you said, Brady, it leaves everybody up to their own interpretation. Like, is this guy healthy? Can he truly play? Like, why is he not on the field?
Yeah.
When we had this discussion, guys, I was saying sometimes, you got to protect yourself from yourself as players. Right, because if you know that there's something still not right, we see Kawhi Leonard did it right when he's with the San Antonio Spurs. He decided to keep himself out of the game because he felt like he wasn't 100% healthy. I was just looking at Deshaun Watson's past, right, and he's always been a gritty performer. Like, people forget when he's playing for the Houston Texans, he was getting beat up a lot of those games, and he was showing up every week until they had the issue and he decided he wanted to get traded. Now, I'm just talking about the football player on the field right now. All the other stuff, you can come up with your own interpretation. But as far as the football player on the field, I've never been able to question his competitiveness. I've never seen it on the field where we question that. So when he was hurt and people were saying, potentially when you make $230 million, maybe that makes you take your time in coming back. I was just saying, from what I've seen on film, I've never seen him not play if he's able to actually play. Then we see him, I think it was Brady, 2-3 weeks ago, he comes in, doesn't look good, they take him back out of the game, right? Something clearly was still wrong with the shoulder. And like you said, Brady, the Browns handled this terribly, right, in regards to putting out statements saying he's medically cleared. Because, again, if you're not specific in that scenario, then you leave the interpretation up to everybody in the media to make their own interpretation. So I really did like how they came out and they were clear about his injury, what it was going to take, him him, saying he still kind of wanted to play, even though he knew if he took a hit the wrong way, it could really damage his arm. That shows you how competitive he is. And to your point, Brady, I mean, that second half, you would have never known anything was wrong with his shoulder. I mean, he was perfect, 14 of 14 in the second half. And I think the thing that was gutsy, you talked about the high ankle injury. There was multiple times, Brady, he scrambled and picked up first downs, right? He scrambled and picked up a 2-point conversion. So, I mean, I think his competitiveness should never be questioned going forward. It just sucks if you're the Browns because you maybe feel like that we were getting that Deshaun of old, right? And now with that defense that you talked about, Brady, I mean, this defense is stifling. Like Myles Garrett to me is the forefront leader for Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, this dude has been unblockable.
Yeah, we're good. I think the thing you bring up about his competitiveness being questioned, it's not that competitive is questioned. Because like the bigger topic of discussion, this came up from something that I brought up talking about on radio. And this is why everyone started talking about it and everyone made it a big deal because they clipped off a portion and talking about a philosophical conversation is, do we question NBA players' toughness when there's load management?
I think people have been questioning Kawhi Leonard.
And that's what I'm saying is like, we're going to get to a point in the NFL if, we start playing 18, which will eventually come, and maybe even more than that, where some players, and even on Thursday night short weeks, they're just not going to be able to be ready from a Sunday to a Thursday to be able to play a game.
Correct.
Side note, it's one of the reasons why I wish the NFL would look at adopting primetime games throughout the course of the week to provide extra rest for players and not being beholden to Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, and that being it. It's like, well, why not incorporate it Tuesday or Wednesday if you could figure out a way of giving some players some additional rest, additional days throughout the course of the year. But I think the greater point here is when you have a medical staff that clears you, all right, it leaves too much ambiguity as to like what's going on then. And that's been the biggest difference of what happened earlier this season and what's happening now. And there's a difference in like how your shoulder feels if it's hurt and banged up versus like you have the potential of not being able to ever play at this level again because of structural damage. Like it's not worth considering. It's not, you don't question it. It is what, like you move on from that. Yeah. Like there's other injuries that you sustain that like, it's going to be pain, like high ankle sprain. Like some of that, it might need surgery. It might not. You might have to wait sometimes so the pain goes down. You can play effectively. So I don't know that anyone was questioning his competitiveness. I think it comes down to just the miscommunication from the team and from his party as to what the heck was going on. And that's what left everything up to speculation. But in regards to, toughness and all that stuff, no one's questioning anyone's toughness when you're a football player. At least they shouldn't. Unfortunately, I think in today's society, when there's social media and everything else there, like anyone can question anyone's toughness or question anything. So it is what it is. But I do think that wasn't part of the conversation necessarily. It was just the miscommunication or lack of communication, being clear about what exactly is going on. And that's not the case here. Like the Browns know exactly where he's at moving forward, and they know exactly what they have to do moving forward too.
Well, I would say this, Brady, and I spoke about this, and people were worried about what his teammates would feel like. And Brady, you know this, after a while, if players truly feel like a guy can play, like there'll start being like rumors and murmurs coming out of the locker room. That never happened in this situation. You never heard anybody come out. You never heard any reporters report that, certain players are frustrated that Deshaun isn't playing. And that should have kind of been a telltale as well, too, because I know we always say, Brady, we want to keep things in the locker room. But like you said, with social media these days and everything, things rarely stay in the locker room anymore in today's society, right? Things come out. So I just think, again, the Browns did handle this terribly is in regards to an original statement saying he was medically cleared, because that does leave it up to interpretation from everybody. Yeah. But I think players on the team not being frustrated in this situation. I mean, obviously they want Deshaun out there.
Well, you're winning.
They kind of know, like, if I'm in his position, if I'm not truly all the way back, I'm hurting the team if I go out there. And the crazy thing is, right, he did try to go out there a couple games ago. It didn't look good. And people said, well, he didn't look good before that, but we don't know how long the shoulder injury was lingering, right?
Yeah, but I think, again, when people make that statement, they're talking about the end of last year and then the beginning of this year, where Tennessee was probably his best game. He got hurt in that game, but
correct.
It's kind of a moot point now. It doesn't really matter moving forward because
he's done for
I think the frustration, even if there was players who were frustrated, it doesn't matter. I mean, they're not going to voice it. They're a winning football team. They've been right there in the mix the whole entire time. You tend to get players who question that more, I think, when you have a losing season.
Yeah.
And, things aren't going by. Then everything gets questioned. Like I harken back to the whole Bills situation with Ken Dorsey, and I know we're going to segue at some point, but like if they don't have 12 men on the field,
he's not
Denver
getting fired.
This is the kick. Does Ken Dorsey get fired?
Right. No, not at all.
Or if the Bills, yeah, exactly. And we will get to Dorsey in a minute. For the Browns, I think it was interesting just to like, and I know we talked about like the way that the Browns handle this too. You can see it with the quotes that are being disseminated out there, where it's like they like Deshaun Watson's agent or somebody, Deshaun or somebody yelled at the Browns like, "Look, if you're gonna, when you announce this, like, make sure that you do it right this time, and like, don't let this get out there because you heard. I think the quote from Andrew Berry was that Deshaun Watson, and it calls it, quote, an incredible display of physical and mental toughness for Watson to play with a fractured shoulder and high ankle sprain for more than one of the I mean, it is like
Jack Youngblood. It's like Jack Youngblood.
Yeah, but my thing is, if I'm Deshaun, I don't care about you saying that after the fact. Like, you're like, where was all this in the beginning when you left and left it up to everybody to interpret whether I was truly hurt or not?
So let me ask you this: what do we think they do next? Where do the Browns go from here in terms of they have DTR, they have PJ Walker. They said they're going to add a quarterback.
Here's the thing: I wonder if they don't look at the Josh Dobbs situation and go, man, I wish we would have hung on to him this year. Like, boy, that would have come in. I mean, that was the team he was with, and if they
traded him for a 5th-round pick.
Not only would he have helped them, earlier this year, he'd be definitely helping them right now.
He'd probably be elevating them right now.
I mean, he's played really well, man.
Yeah. Well, this is my thing, Brady, because I looked at that too earlier, and I'm like, first of all, you paid him. It wasn't like they just brought him in, Brady. They paid him to be the number 2 on this team, just in case a scenario like this happened. And I think they just got a little happy feet when they saw DTR play as well as he did in preseason. And we know, Brady, it's an immense like ratchet up period from preseason to regular season. And I thought it was interesting that there's rumors that DTR is going to start this week because the one start he had, Brady, did not look good. At least with PJ Walker, you were still in games. The game that DTR played, they weren't in that game from the beginning. Like, it got ugly quick. So I thought it was interesting because they have been able to run, even though that, Nick Chubb is gone, Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt have been able to run the ball effectively. I mean, that Ravens defense was the number 1 defense in football, and Jerome Ford went over 100 on them. Like, they ran the ball really well. So that's what Stefanski wants to do anyway. He wants to be in 12 personnel, one back, 2 tight ends, be able to attack you down the seams with his tight ends, and then get Amari Cooper involved in the intermediate game. So I thought PJ Walker, as long as he doesn't turn the ball over, because we talked about that too, if he could take care of the football, I thought he could be a consummate pro, a stopgap guy on the way to a run to the playoffs because their defense is just that good. Like, that defense is going to keep you in games no matter what.
No.
So they have the Steelers this week, at the Broncos, at the Rams, Jaguars, Bears at home, at the Texans. Deshaun Watson doesn't get to play his old team once again, versus the Jets, and at the Bengals. That feels like if you got Deshaun Watson playing well, like, all right, this is a very good chance for like a playoff team, and they can threaten the Ravens to win the division. Now it feels like.
I mean, I'll say this much: the Steelers, if the playoffs started today, are in. We don't look at them as an offensive juggernaut,
to say the least.
It's not like the Browns are out of this thing. Like, they're really not. I still think they have a shot. I still think they have an opportunity. As long as they take care of the football, as Leger's pointed out, like, they can run. That offensive line is one of the best in the league. The defense is one of the best.
They got to get healthy, though.
Like, that's part of it. But look, they weren't healthy last week, and they were still in the mix.
They still ran the ball. They
still ran the ball. They lost.
Sean
saving the plagues, but
they've lost their 2 starting tackles, one of the 3 best running backs in the NFL, and Nick Chubb, and now a quarterback who they gave $230 million fully guaranteed $230 million fully guaranteed to, like, and a former like All-Pro / Pro Bowler quarterback. I mean, that's a lot. If they make the playoffs, Kevin Stefanski should get some Coach of the Year looks. Honestly, like,
he's definitely in the discussion.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, if you look at him and Kevin O'Connell, similar situations, right?
For
you
sure.
lose your number 1 receiver. The Browns lose Nick Chubb. You lose your quarterback. The Vikings lose Kirk Cousins. And this is why I always say, Brady, coaching matters, right? Because you got to be able to elevate your team. Like, I think Josh Dobbs said it best, right? This is a production-based league, right? We don't care what you're going through, what scenario you're put in. Your job is to go out there and get it done. And both of these coaches have done that at a high level the last few weeks.
All right, so let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the aforementioned Kenneth Dorsey and what it means to get fired after your
how you get fired
defense.
on your day off.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next.
It's never too soon for college basketball. Don't miss the Baha Mar Hoops Bahamas Championship on CBS Sports Network.
All right, so real quickly, and then we'll get into some division winner discussion, but Ken Dorsey fired by the Buffalo Bills after losing Monday night on, and as you pointed out, Deuce, it's like you miss a field goal, Bills win, 12 too many men on the field, Bills get a kick again, and Dorsey's fired. The Bills rank like top 5 in every advanced and basic offensive metric this season. I saw it pointed out by somebody that it's almost like because the defense is so banged up, because the Bills are losing, because there's this sort of exterior pressure being put on this team, it's like every little mistake the offense makes feels extremely amplified.
Yeah, let me give you a little bit of history lesson here, right? Because the Bills went through this same exact thing back in 2021, okay? Brian Daboll was the coach. This is weeks 9 through 14, all right? Remember, Stephon Diggs had got there, I believe, in 2020, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
and that was where like Josh Allen really arrived. Diggs had a big year. Diggs had so like they're starting to roll now. Like we're looking at the Bills like, oh, is this the contender to the Kansas City Chiefs? So they hit a 2-4 lull between weeks 9 and weeks 14. They had 13 turnovers offensively. They were averaging 360 yards per game offensively and 22 points per game.
This sounds familiar.
Let's fast forward to 2023. Weeks 5 through 10, 2-4 record, 13 turnovers by the offense, 356 yards per game, averaging 21 points per game.
Wow.
Almost the exact same statistical analysis in that 2-4 span. Okay. Now, what'd they do that year? They stuck by Brian Daboll. They found their way out of it. They won their next 5 games, including a wild card playoff game. All right. Obviously lost in the divisional round. Okay. So what's the biggest difference between 2021 and that lull in 2023? Let's look at the numbers. All right. Their defensive stats during that time. In 2021, they gained 8 turnovers in that period. So they still had a -5 turnover margin. They were giving up 312 yards per game. Pretty damn good. And only giving up 20 points per game. Pretty good. 2023, they got half the amount of turnovers. All right. They've only gotten 4. It's -9 in the turnover margin. So to your point, Will, things are a little bit more elevated offensively when you make mistakes. If you're not getting as many turnovers on defense. And they're giving up 359 yards, almost 360 yards of offense. That's 50 more yards almost on offense. And then 2 more points per game, which doesn't seem like that much, but over the course of a season, when you're talking about really tight NFL, that's sometimes the difference between winning and losing. So in this case, you can't fire the defensive coordinator because that's Sean McDermott, right?
Exactly.
What other change are you going to make? You're not firing Josh Allen, all right? You're not benching him, even though a lot of the turnovers he's been a part of, and it's not all on him. It's on a lot of parties involved.
Gabe Davis.
So you fire the one person that you kind of can that's expendable in this case, and that's offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey, because you have Joe Brady on your staff and you can elevate him. So there's probably some other avenues they could have went, but this more signals like a bigger picture thing to me with the Pagulas, who are the owners. The Pagula family is a big donor at Penn State University. Who just got fired this past week at Penn State? The offensive coordinator, Mike Yurcich.
Mike Yurcich, yep.
I'm just saying, if you are a owner of an NFL team, and you're a big money donor, and you're not getting the results that you want, a lot of times you can use your influence to make certain decisions. And I think in both cases at Penn State, they weren't very happy with what was happening offensively. You move on from Yurcich, and it just so happens in the same week, the Pagula family, who owns the Bills, not happy about where the offense is going, even though largely their defense, due to injury, has impacted them more than anything else. It's just kind of interesting that they happen to own the team, and guess who gets clipped? The offensive coordinator. So it's disheartening to me that they don't stick by Ken Dorsey and see this thing through it. I don't know the relationship that Josh Allen has with him. I mean, he was the quarterback coach for 2 years prior to being the passing game coordinator and then becoming the offensive coordinator. So obviously they've been together for a while. I would imagine they have a good relationship.
Yeah.
Maybe they're going through a rough patch. I don't know.
Okay, that wouldn't be this time.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I was like, well, I guess I can't keep up with you.
But Will,
Go ahead,
just breaking down what Brady was talking about, and I'm glad he brought it up because he brought up some points that I was going to bring up. First and foremost, I'd like to say Ken Dorsey 100% was a scapegoat in this scenario, 110%. Because as me and Brady were saying before the break, if they don't have 12 men on the field and Lutz misses that field goal, there's no way he's firing Ken Dorsey. There's no way. Yeah. My thing is, he's right. You can't fire Josh Allen, but what you can do is take the game out of his hand. Let's go back to what Brady was talking about last year. I don't know if Brady remembers, maybe he does. There was a scenario where they played the Cleveland Browns, but remember they had to play him in Detroit because of the storm. Now, this is off of that stretch where Josh Allen had multiple turnovers versus the New York Jets, hurt his elbow, then had the turnovers versus the Vikings. What did Ken Dorsey do that game? He took the ball out of Josh Allen's hands. They ran the ball for nearly 200 yards. What did they do on that last drive this last week versus Denver to take the lead? They took the ball out of Josh Allen's hands. They ran the ball. So Ken Dorsey does know how to rail him back in if he does start playing high school Harry football and turning it over. Run the football. I mean, James Cook averaged, I believe, over 8 yards a carry. Latavius Murray averaged like over 4 or 5 yards a carry. I don't know where in the books it says just because we're paying a quarterback $200+ million that we can't run the football. Like, that is outrageous to me. And Sean McDermott, like, this is what I was talking about earlier this offseason when he got into it with Steph Diggs, may have misspoke in the media. Brady, you know this, as a head coach, you got to be level-headed, right? You can't speak off emotion. You can't make emotional changes. And time after time, McDermott shows us that he makes emotional decisions, right? He misspoke about Steph Diggs, who was your number one player on offense. Or you could put Josh Allen there in that scenario, 1A, 1B, right? You upset him because you clearly told him he could go home because you guys couldn't come to terms on what you were talking about. But then you go to the media and say you're very concerned that he isn't there. Now you ask Ken Dorsey as if he's the issue when your quarterback. This is a crazy stat, y'all. You know how many turnovers Josh Allen has since he started in the NFL? 94 turnovers. Yeah, you know how many games Josh Allen has actually played in? Only 87. So he's averaging at least one turnover plus a game. How is that on the coordinator? No, that's on Josh Allen. So you can say what you want, McDermott, and maybe you're right, Brady. Maybe there is some conspiracy theory where the owners aren't happy and somebody had to get the boot. But firing Ken Dorsey was not the solution in this scenario. Let's not also forget the Bills have a gauntlet of a schedule coming up, right? Mm-hmm. I believe they have the Dolphins again. The Jets always play the Bills really hard. They have the Chiefs still to play. They have the Cowboys still to play. And I believe the Eagles too, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, this is when you want to fire your offensive coordinator before that gauntlet of a schedule? Yeah. I said it, Brinson, and me, you were texting. I said it in the beginning of the year, and Brady, you even looked at me crazy. I said, I don't think the Bills are making the playoffs this year. Now, of course, this is before Aaron Rodgers' injury. Right. I just said, because, Brady, you know this, most teams, when they have a legit shot, it's a 3 to 4 year window. And I felt like last year was their last window. Now, they tried to elevate that by bringing in Leonard Floyd. And I said, that makes a lot of sense. If and only if.
He was the 12th man, I believe. On the field.
Exactly. I said that elevates his team. If and only if we get the Von Miller we saw before the ACL, we have not gotten that. Plus the injuries on defense. I told everybody looked at me, I said, I don't see them making the playoffs just because I think they missed their window. And it's because of Patrick Mahomes. That's just what it is. But their window, they already missed it already.
So I think it's interesting to note, too, that before the season, the Bills, amidst all this sort of like the sky is falling, the windows closing kind of chatter out there, and everybody's, I think there's a lot of people who are, for whatever reason, like, and I'm not saying you're this way to do this, but it's just like people are like kind of like okay with the Bills like failing and like it all falling apart. But then they gave that contract extension to Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane, but it was like very much like everything's fine. Like, don't look at it like it didn't feel like it was like a big, like, hey, you know, like we're announcing this extension because it felt like a vote of confidence extension.
And on top of that, it literally happened after the issue with Stephon Diggs.
Yes, correct.
So it seemed like it was a cover-up thing to let, like you said, Will, to let everybody know, you know, families argue, but we're fine. Look, we just extended our GM and head coach. And I was like, the timing of that is awful, right? The optics just does not look good right now if you're the Buffalo Bills. Like, why would you extend a coach who misspoke about something and essentially threw a player under the bus when he was in the wrong?
Prisco says he thinks that the Bills could blow it up this offseason if they miss the playoffs. Agree or disagree?
I agree with it. I mean, you're paying a lot of people a lot of money. And if you're not going to make the playoffs and make runs, Brady, what is the purpose of paying them dudes all that money?
No, I mean, obviously, I think the reason why you pay everyone money is because you feel like you have a quarterback who can win you a Super Bowl. And there's no doubt, Josh Allen has that talent, has that ability. I think the tough thing for him is it's interesting. He was on a podcast with Tom Brady earlier this year, and they were talking about just kind of like, running and taking off. And Josh Allen was kind of like defending that decision to do that. And obviously, he's such a gifted athlete. He's big. He's physical. Like, he's got all of that. But I think Tom Brady was trying to tell him, like, hey, man, like, this is how you play long time, in your 40s, really successfully and win multiple Super Bowls, because eventually, like, those hits add up and freak accidents happen, all that stuff. And I wonder if, depending on how the rest of the season goes, like, I remember when I went to play for Ty Willingham in college, and I was the first coach that got fired that I was a starting quarterback for, and I felt completely responsible for it. To this day, I feel guilty about it. And that one hit me the most, because that's the team that, like, I chose, they chose me, right? They chose to make an offer, I chose to go there. And even to this day, every time I see him, I feel like I always need to apologize, because I just wasn't the player that he needed to be at that point in time in my career, especially as a true freshman playing when I was 18 years old. But I always like reflect back on that and looking at the partnership with your offensive coordinator and with the head coach in that case. And, it can kind of be a touchy thing, because you're in a cutthroat business where when things aren't going right, like, someone has to take the fall. That's why I bring up, like, the lines are so thin, right? Like, if they win that game, we're not having this conversation.
Correct.
Right? If they're a 3-3 team over the last 6, and hey, they ended up winning a close one versus Denver coming off the bye. Like, we make all these reasons on the outside as to why they won that game. And instead, because of the loss and the way they lost, ultimately they have to move on from offense coordinator. And now we're talking about, like, well, what happens if it doesn't work out? They blew up the whole thing. It's like, man, I think more organizations hurt themselves by blowing things up instead of making minor directions in the course and how they're going about, like, where they're trying to get to, right? It's like steering a ship. All right. Anyone who knows, like, when you kind of move that rudder, it's not like driving a car where you go to turn right and it turns right away, right? It's not like that. You kind of turn the rudder a bit. It takes a little minute before you start correcting. And sometimes you overcorrect. You got to go a little bit back the other way. It's not like a straight line. And I think that's the hard thing for Buffalo right now is they're feeling like they need to change the direction and change the rudder. And sometimes when you overcorrect and you blow things up, you push yourself even further back from having the ultimate success that you want to. And that's my concern and worry for, I think, Josh Allen, for, Sean McDermott, really that entire organization.
All right, let's do some rapid fire playoff division winner predictions. So we're going to do some Thursday night football as well. We'll see if we got time. AFC North, Brady,
Baltimore,
Deuce.
Baltimore.
I'm going Baltimore Ravens as well. That's what I picked in the beginning of the year. I'm sticking with it.
I like
that's what I picked in the beginning of the year as well. Or no, I'm going to pick Cincinnati.
You know what's annoying is I've had the Ravens and the Eagles winning in the Super Bowl last year, and it's blatantly going to be this year. And I had the Bills this year.
Have you guys seen that conspircy theory about the colors?
Yeah, the colors. Yeah. So the Super Bowl logo
is going to be the Chiefs and the Ravens, supposedly.
Yeah. I thought it was the Ravens and 49ers. It can't be Chiefs and the Ravens.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. My bad.
Ravens and 49ers to match the Super Bowl logo.
Yeah. Well, I guess the last 2 or 3 years it's been like
the Vikings and Chiefs.
That's why the NFL scripted, right? It's like that's what they want. This is
could it be the Vikings and the Chiefs?
Ooh, spicy.
Josh
hey, speaking of the Vikings, who wins the NFC North? Vikings or the Lions?
Brady
I think your only choices.
Brady picked the Vikings.
I know. I think there might be a playoff team. I'm not sure they make it all the way to catch Detroit. Although they still have to play Detroit twice.
You got to play them twice still.
Sweep Detroit. Sweep Detroit. You're winning that division.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
I picked Detroit in the beginning of the year. I'm sticking.
Yeah, I had the Lions too. Brady, you going Lions?
You know what? Screw it. I'll go with Vikings. Come on, Josh Dobbs. He's been the best.
I love it, Brady. Stick with it.
Stick with it. Come on, KOC. Let's go.
I mentioned the Eagles as my Super Bowl pick last year. Didn't have them this year, but they are on top of the NFC East. Do they hold off against the Cowboys, who they have a substantial lead over? I think so.
But they have a much more difficult schedule than Dallas the rest of the way. I think did I pick Dallas before the start of the season?
You did.
I picked Dallas.
I kind of have to stick with Dallas now, I feel like. Because they're the next, right there, right?
I'll stick with Dallas too.
I know you
Screw
said you
it.
put it into your little system thing. I think you said you had them going to the Super Bowl.
I do. I had them going to Super. I had them losing Cincinnati though, which now does not look like it's going to happen. So we'll see.
I think Cincinnati still sneaks in.
Yeah, I do too. I think all right. So all right. AFC East. I mean, what a wild division. Like, I mean, it's got to be. Like, it has to be.
I
literally said it was going to be between the Jets and Dolphins. Everybody looked at me crazy, but even as a Jet guy, I think it's the Dolphins.
What do you ever
I was
look
saying
at
in the
you
beginning.
crazy,
I was saying,
like, you went out on a limb and you picked the Jets. That's who I picked to win it. One, and then the Dolphins, which were a good team last year.
People were saying Buffalo's won it 3 years in a row. Buffalo's still here, and I kept trying to tell people Buffalo is done.
I was wrong. I'm telling you, man. I need to start doing like a
I want to know the people Lachey knows who tell him he's crazy all the time because I feel like we have these conversations. Like, who are you referring to?
All you got to do is go on my Twitter, bro.
I need to do a charitable thing where like I raise money. It's like and whoever like whatever fan base donates the most money, they can pick what team I pick to win the Super Bowl. Because whoever I pick to win the Super Bowl like craters like every year. It's amazing. Like
and I think your boy Pete Piscro picked Buffalo too, and I told him I'm trying to tell you this is over with for them.
I think even Jacksonville actually, and Trevor Lawrence for MVP.
Trouble.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence for MVP. Yeah, I know, right? Pete should go to jail for his crimes and picking NFL games. Okay,
who did you guys pick for the East?
I'll go Dolphins. They have 88% chance to win the division according to the Upshot.
Look, I picked the Jets before the season. I think the Dolphins are the team that probably makes it now. Got to make that correction without A-Rod coming back. It just unfortunately, if Rodgers is there, it's probably a different story, but not the case.
By the way, I mean,
the Dolphins too.
The Dolphins, but the Dolphins are coming off their bye, so it's like easy to forget. They still haven't beat a team with a winning record. Like
I was just about to say that they need to beat somebody that actually has a winning record before I just say they're going to win.
Fortunately for the Dolphins, they don't have to.
That is true. They're in the AFC.
Let's see how the rest of the season.
Everybody thought that was going to be the hardest division in football this year too.
They have two games remaining against teams with a winning record. Just the Cowboys.
There
and the
we
Ravens.
go. So how many games do they have left, Will? How many?
They have the Raiders, the Jets,
the Raiders this week though.
Commanders, the Titans, the Jets again, the Cowboys, the Ravens, and the Bills.
Yeah, the 12-point favorites of the Raiders. They don't have to beat a winning team in order to be able to make the playoffs.
Right.
You know that, right?
Right. They can win the division without beating a team with a winning record. That's pretty insane.
Exactly.
Okay. The AFC West.
KC, come on, pick them before the season.
Are we really asking this question?
All right, the NFC West. Again, are we really asking this question?
We didn't do the AFC South.
Oh, we're gonna get there.
We're gonna get there. I'm still gonna say Seattle.
Oh no, I got San Francisco.
I'm gonna say Seattle. They haven't played each other yet. They still got to play twice.
That's fine.
That's a good point. That'll be a good race down the stretch.
Yeah, I think they got the same record right now too, right? Seattle have one game behind.
Yeah, they're both 6-3.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. San Fran has the tiebreak. San Fran has a tiebreak because they're 2-0 in the division. The NFC South.
NFC or AFC?
NFC.
Man, I picked the Saints before the beginning of the season.
Everybody should get relegated.
No, you know what though? I'm glad they went to Jameis. I hope they stick with them the rest of the way. Like
it's way more entertaining.
But just I feel like he's just got a better feel for them down the field pushing the ball. Like
for sure.
Man, it's disappointing. But
could the Bucs sneakily win that division?
The Falcons could sneakily win the division.
Yeah,
I'll stick with the Falcons.
Everybody's dealing with quarterback issues except for the Bucs.
I picked the Falcons before the season. I'll stick with the Falcons.
I'll stick with the Saints.
I picked the Saints before the season, so I'm gonna stick with them.
All right, AFC South. We're all taking the Jaguars, right? Or does anybody want to take the Texans?
I'm taking the Texans, baby. Let's go.
Actually,
I'll already destroyed them in Jacksonville. Hey, we were talking about this last week. Brady wasn't on the show. If you look at their last 8 games, 5 were at home. The 3 on the road, I believe, are the Colts, Titans, and Jets.
They can win. That's a lot of winnable games. All right, one word answer. We gotta get to break. You want Jaguars or Texans, Brady?
I picked Jags before the season. I'll have to stick with them, but Texans are definitely a playoff team.
Let's take a break, and then the AFC North has a massive game on Thursday night. We'll talk about it quickly next. All right, welcome back to the Big Six Podcast. Thursday Night Football, Bengals and Ravens, a huge clash of AFC North foes. Dudes, what do you think about this matchup?
Oh man, this is gonna be an interesting matchup because both teams are dealing with O-line issues. I mean, Ronnie Stanley went out in the game last week. The right tackle Morgan Moses was hurt before the game, so they're dealing with both backup tackles. So are the Cleveland Browns. When you look at this game, I mean, not Cleveland Browns. The Cincinnati Bengals aren't. Cincinnati Bengals aren't dealing with offensive issues. I was talking about Cleveland Browns. But if you look at the Cincinnati Bengals, I mean, Joe Burrow had an inexcusable red zone turnover, which we don't usually see. You wonder, Brady, how much T. Higgins not being there, and we'll see if he's able to go this week, has really hindered this team. The Ravens were the number one defense in football for a reason. Now, Cleveland, they were able to run the ball, and Deshaun was perfect the second half. Now, was that an aberration, or was there some leakage in the armor? Lamar Jackson's been amazing in prime time. I think the Ravens get this done. I know, Brady, you're like, Cincinnati's schedule is a little tough down the stretch. We'll see if they can make a run. I think it just depends on if T. Higgins can come back, right? Because we've seen this all the time. Teams are going to slot that extra defender to Jamar Chase. And Joe Burrow looked really good in that first half. He was able to find Trent Irwin on a big play down the field. He was able to use his tight end. So Burrow doesn't mind throwing the ball around, but this stars usually win those big games. Like, you got to have T. Higgins in the fold. I still think the Ravens in the run game, the one thing the Bengals have struggled with, stopping the run. I mean, goodness gracious. Devin Singletary still running.
I get running. But
okay.
So,
Go ahead.
The Ravens
who you got in the game?
The Ravens -4. No Hendrickson, I think, hurts. No Higgins hurts in this one. And just kind of curious to see where the Bengals are in all this. So, all right, guys.
All right,
do your thing, man.
All right, good job. All right, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Produced for Brady, I'm Brinson. We'll see you guys later.